Now we are. What we'll do this evening is B'rtz Hashem chazra through the halachas of Pesach, particularly Pesach, and we'll get into the halachas Be'ezus Hashem of Chol HaMoed as well. In order to accomplish this in the amount of time that we have, what I would like to do is just read through the halachos, go through step by step, hopefully cover as much as we can. Please feel free to chat any questions. I don't believe there's the option to unmute yourselves right now. I don't want to pause, but at the end, please feel free to chat any questions while this is going on. And at the end, we'll open it up to take any questions that people may have. So if something pops up in your mind, please jot it down on your own paper or send me a text when I go through a number of halachos here a number of halachos here this evening, particularly pertaining to this year where Erev Pesach falls out on Shabbos. All right, so let's go. Category number one is the month of Nisan itself. Prior to Pesach, during the month of Nisan, there's a mitzvah for every Jew to study the halachos of Pesach within 30 days before the Yom Tiv. This mitzvah continues through the Yom Tiv of Pesach itself. Okay, so even if a person is learning the halachos of Pesach, we have fulfilled this mitzvah of Shleishim Yom Kaidem HaChag, includes the Chag. The 30 days prior to the festival includes the festival. There's a particular mitzvah not only of learning the halachas, but of learning the halachas around the holiday, the Yom Tif time. The Ramah writes that, and this is brought down in the beginning of the Yerushalmi in Maseches Baba Basra, that there's an obligation to give tzedakah to the poor local people to enable them to purchase things for their Yom Tov needs in a respectable manner. This is known as Ma'os Chitim, or in some places it's called Kimcha de Pischa, the flour of Pesach. And the Chafetz Chaim, the great Rabbi Yisrael Meir HaKohen Kagan, who passed away in the early 1900s, the Chafetz Chaim warns that a person who refuses to contribute to the poor of their community have a tremendous sin on their hands. And the Chafetz Chaim writes this in the Mishnah Brura, and in the Shar HaTzion. Now, Rosh Chodesh Nisan also marks the beginning of the season of the trees where they start to bloom, they start to blossom, and therefore there's a custom to recite Birchas Ilanos, a blessing that we make over a tree that is starting to blossom in this month. This should be done by men, women, and children, and the bracha may only be said upon seeing a flower bloom that precedes the growth of a fruit. So we don't make the blessing when you see a fruit. Now, interestingly as well, it doesn't need to be done during the month of Nisan. Just usually this is the season when things start to blossom. But if a person does not see a fruit tree in bloom during the month of Nisan, it is permitted to do it, and with the bracha, any other time that you see a tree when the fruit has not yet ripened. This would particularly apply to places such as Australia, which they have different seasons that things blossom in, right? They have a whole different season. So if it doesn't happen to be the month of Nisan, that is also okay. During the entire month of Nisan is considered like a Yom Tif, and therefore we don't say Tachanun throughout the entire month of Nisan. We don't say, whenever you don't say Tachanun, you don't say the phrase of Tzidkascha by Shabbos Mincha either, or the Hiratzon after Mondays and Thursdays Kriyas HaTorah. Sfardim also don't say Kel Erech HaPayim. This is what's said by when you take out a Sefer Torah, or Lam Natseach. Sfardim do not say Lam Natseach. By Ashrei Uvoletzion, Ashkenazim do. We also don't fast during the month of Nisan. There are some people who have accustomed to fast on a yard site. If the yard site falls out in the month of Nisan, then one should not fast. There is, however, it is permitted to fast in the month of Nisan for a tainis chalom. If somebody has some sort of dream, that a person has a bad dream that they're trying to get rid of, so one of the ways to get rid of it is called tainis chalom. A person can accept that upon themselves a fast. That would be permitted to do during the month of Nisan. So that is a general overview of the basic halachos that take place during this month. Next is Bedikas Chametz, which we're going to have this year on Thursday night, right? Because the night prior to Pesach is Friday night, and we don't do Bedikas Chametz on Friday night. So Bedikas Chametz this year is going to take place on Thursday night. What are we looking for by bedikas chametz. As we say every year, this is very important. We're looking for things for chametz that is the size of an olive. Okay, if something is very, very small, you have little itty bitty crumbs, that's not really what we have to search out for. However, if something is made very small, such as a Cheerio is smaller than the size of a kazaya, smaller than the size of an olive, but it's meant to be like that. So Cheerios or soup nuts, things like that need to be searched out. This is the halacha, okay, to search for complete things or things that are the size of a olive, size of a kazayas. However, the prevalent custom is to search as carefully as possible for any sort of chametz. Nowadays, we really do usually clean the house before bedikas chametz. Back then, they didn't have homes the size of that we have, right? So they would first start, moving things out a day or two before. They weren't maching meshuga. They weren't driving themselves crazy the same way that we do. So nowadays that we clean the house before bedikas chametz, Rav Shmuel Kamenetsky Shlita writes in his Sefer Kovetz Halachas that we don't need to do an in-depth search in every spot of your house. Bedikas chametz does not need a thorough search. Rather, one is required to give a general look over for all the areas. Okay, so I already cleaned out the area. Now I'm going to give like a general, I'm going to look things over to make sure nothing has been brought there. How should we search out for the chametz? So Rav Shmuel Kamenetsky writes, it is appropriate and fine, lechatchila, it is ideal to search with a flashlight. And he brings a proof to this because the Shulchan Aruch says that a person should not do bedikas chametz, should not do the search with a torch. You shouldn't search out with a multi-wicked candle because it could cause a flame. Nowadays, we're not so confident and comfortable when we walk around holding a candle. We got to be careful not to start a fire. And therefore, since we're not accustomed to using candles and handling flames, a flashlight is safer than a candle, and a better bedika is going to be performed. And therefore, it's ideal to use a flashlight. Says Reb Shmuel Kamenetsky. However, there is an ancient that we do have this custom to use a feather, to use a candle itself. So he says, okay, so here's what we should do. Here's how we should practically behave with our bedikas chametz. Here's what he suggests: make the blessing, which is done prior. Begin checking with a candle for a minute or two, and then switch over to a flashlight. This way, you got in, your candle, you got it all in, and you're doing a much better checking with a flashlight. It is permitted for the lights to be on in the room as well. You don't need to search specifically in a dark house. Now, there is a dispute amongst the commentators. There's a machlokas haposkim exactly when the checking, the bedikas chametz, should begin. Ideally, we say it's seisak kochavim, okay, 45 or 50 minutes after the stars come out. That's the ideal time to start checking for chametz. Even people who generally on a Shabbos wait longer, some people wait till 72 minutes. There's no inyan to wait longer for bedikas chametz. It should be, the search should start, 45 to 15 minutes after sunset. Now, many of us are aware that there is a prevailing custom to put out 10 pieces of bread for bedikas chametz. Ideally, a person should make sure when they lay out the 10 pieces of bread to write down the exact location. We're not looking to hide more bread so that we can't find it, okay? The custom of putting out 10 pieces of bread, make sure to wrap it well in silver foil so we don't leave crumbs. But it's not a game of hide and seek. It's actually the ones checking for chametz can be the ones who put out the 10 pieces of bread. The purpose of putting out the bread is to ensure that it's spread out, and I'm not going to stop my bedika until all 10 are found. It's going to make sure that I check throughout the entire house. Another reason for the putting out of the 10 breads is that since our homes are already checked, what happens if I make a blessing on my bedikas chametz and then I find no bread? I didn't find any chametz. So then it may have been a bracha levatalin. It may have been a blessing in vain, and that's another reason why we put out the 10 pieces of bread. All right. a person should not sit down to a meal or be working a half hour before the time for checking. So if we're going to start checking, let's say the time is 50 minutes after sunset, we should not sit. You could snack, but don't sit down to a dinner. Don't be involved in work within a half hour prior to that, because we're concerned that if we're involved in work or we're involved in a sit down dinner, a person may then push off the mitzvah. Now, you could do the mitzvah anytime during the night. It doesn't have to be at that moment. It could be done at a later time. But as we know, there's a rule: Zerizim makdimin l'mitzvos. The person should approach mitzvos with alacrity as fast as possible, and therefore, as soon as a person could do it, is appropriate. Also, even if a person's learning Torah, a person must stop Torah learning when it comes time for the actual checking. Okay, so you're allowed to wrap up a sugya, you're allowed to wrap up a topic in Torah, but a person should not start a new topic in Torah once it reaches the actual time of Bidika. It is always better to check at night. Bidikas Chametz, it's always better to do it at night. And therefore, if a person's going out of town, something of that sort, they're not doing it on Thursday night, it is appropriate to do the checking the night before. Right? You do something the night before as opposed to the day before. It's always appropriate to do the B'dikas Chametz at night. Now, as we said, a person should make a bracha and do the searching even if they know for a fact that nothing has no chametz in the house. I already checked the whole house. Doesn't matter. A person does the bedika, does the checking with a bracha. Now, since we said the primary reason for the 10 pieces of bread is so that my blessing shouldn't be a blessing in vain, if a person's going out of town or they're moving out of the house and they're not doing a bedika the night prior, don't put out 10 pieces of bread because no blessing is made. The only time there's ever a reason to put out 10 pieces of bread is if I made a blessing. But if I'm ever going to do a search on a night where no bracha is made, for example, a night earlier or 2 days earlier, there's no reason to be putting out the 10 pieces of bread. Okay, which area needs to be searched? Only the areas where chametz may have been brought to. Reb Shmuel Kamenetsky holds that there's no need to check our clothing drawers. You don't need to start opening up all your drawers, since it's not the derech, it's not the normal path, unless it is for some people, if you're hiding candy in there or something, or some cookies, whatever's going on in a person's pockets. But if a person knows that there's no chametz ever brought into their drawers, there's no need to check drawers for chametz. A person, however, should shake out their pockets from their clothing. A lot of chametz can get into pockets. Also, Rav Shmuel points out that you do not need to check suitcases as long as you're the type of person, as long as we're the type of people that make sure before the suitcase is put back into storage, into the garage, wherever we keep it, that there's no food in there. If we make sure there's no food in there before back, you don't need to do b'dikas chametz on those suitcases. It is appropriate to open up various books or sfarim that possibly have been near a food table. Sometimes people read while they eat. Any books that one is confident in did not come into contact with chametz does not need to be searched. And this is true even if it would have only been small crumbs. Okay, even if it would have only been small crumbs, so why do I need to search it? It's not the size of an olive. No, you got to search that kind of book. Why? Because maybe I'll touch that crumb with my hand on Pesach, and it might end up in my mouth or inside something else. And even the smallest amount of chametz we know is a prohibition on Pesach. Continuing on in these halachas of b'dikas chametz, it is highly recommended. It's not an obligation, but it's highly recommended to have a different set of what's called benchers, a different set of birchas hamazon for Pesach, because very often those things are brought to the table and they get dirty, they get schmutzy, they get chametz on them. Something that we've pointed out previously, a new development, is that people eat while they talk on their cell phones or on their home phones, and therefore anybody who's got a phone protector on the phone, one should remove the backing of the protector, remove the backing, and you'd be surprised at what you may find inside of that thing. So just keep in mind, there's new, there's constantly new things that are coming up of areas to check. Any area where Pesach Dika items have already been placed don't need to be checked, because you know for a fact I wouldn't have put my Pesach item there if there's any chance that there was chametz there. It's appropriate to check one's car for chametz. Very often people eat in their cars. Again, if a person's sure they never brought chametz into their car, so then there's no need to check. But people who have sat in their car and ate a sandwich, whatever it is, so that's my property. A person should make sure there's no chametz in their car. Okay. Now, what about areas that are hard to reach? Very often chametz falls into hard to reach areas. So what do I do with that? So any object that's difficult to move, a stove, a fridge, so on and so forth, they don't need to be checked underneath unless it has wheels and it's easy to move. Otherwise, if it's not something, your oven, your fridge, is not something that's easy to move, it's very hard to move, so then what one should do is spray that area with some sort of detergent, some sort of bleach, so that if there's chametz there, we know at least that chametz is ruined. Now, once chametz is not going to be, it's not even fit to be eaten by a dog. It's not roi lachilas keleb. It's not considered food anymore. As long as I spray that area, I've covered all my bases. If you have married children who are visiting parents, so they're obligated to check their rooms with a bracha, because now it's their living area. That's your bedroom now. It's your private space, and therefore it should be checked, even with a bracha. However, a person who's going away to a hotel or to a host and they show up on the day before Pesach, like this, if you show up mamish that day before Pesach, you should do a basic checking, but don't make a bracha. Porches, balconies should be checked. Backyards do not need to be checked. Okay, because porches, very often chametz is brought there in the backyard. Even if a person brought chametz there, you could assume that the birds or the animals made off with it. Okay, that ends the general idea, the general category of bedikas chametz. And again, if anybody has any questions on that, any area of question, please chat that, or you'll ask me, at the end of the shir. But that ends the category of bedikas chametz. Okay. Now, generally, this year is going to be different. Generally, the day of Erev Pesach is called the fast of the firstborn. This year, very interestingly, since Erev Pesach is Shabbos, and you're not allowed to fast on Shabbos, so it gets pulled forward. And we don't fast on Friday either, unless it's Asara B'Teves. So this year, interestingly, the fast of the firstborn is going to take place 3 days prior to Pesach on Thursday. This coming Thursday is the fast of the firstborn. What's the fast of the firstborn? All male firstborn children of either parent. If either I'm the firstborn of a father, I could be the third child of my mother, but this is my father's first kid. Okay? So even if it's the firstborn of a father or the firstborn of a mother, as well as even if a person's a firstborn following a miscarriage, all of these categories of males have a halacha to fast on this year. It's going to be Thursday. Now, the accepted minhag, the accepted custom has been for centuries that the firstborns don't actually fast. Firstborns are supposed to fast. However, if they partake of a seudas mitzvah, of a joyous mitzvah occasion, then they're allowed to partake of that meal. And once they break their fast, they don't need to fast anymore. And therefore, the prevalent custom is that people, every shul will have this coming Thursday, that every minyan, they're going to arrange a siyum, somebody who completed a mesechta, a tractate of Mishnayos or Gemara, and there's going to be a siyum that takes place, and any firstborn that attends that siyum is now permitted to eat and drink for the remainder of that day. This doesn't have to be a siyum. If you have a bris that day, a pidyon ben, okay, or any siyum, like we said before, will qualify as a Seudas mitzvah. Now, even according to halacha, a person who makes a siyum after learning a tractate of Mishnayos, it counts as a siyum. Usually the custom seems to be people make a siyum either when they finish a tractate of Talmud, a tractate of Gemara, or an entire set of Mishnah. But really, halacha, according to halacha, if you finish one small tractate of Mishnah, that will suffice as well. There is an interesting minhag that some people have. I've seen differences of opinion how prevalent this is, but a father of a firstborn son should also fast until the firstborn son is old enough to fast himself. So, for example, in our family, in my family, my oldest son is Yaakov. He is now bar mitzvah. Last year, he wasn't. So last year, even though I'm not a firstborn, I made sure to listen into a siyum on his behalf. The father takes the place of a young firstborn. There are those who have that custom. You have that custom, fine. If you don't have that custom, that is fine as well. Just throwing that out there. It also seems that if a person converts to Judaism, okay, it's appropriate for a firstborn who, even if that person was not born Jewish, but they convert to Judaism, they also have the status of a firstborn Jew, of a firstborn who was saved in Mitzrayim, and it's appropriate for them to join in a siyum as well. And by the way, a siyum does not need a minyan. If a person's by themselves at home, you can make your own siyum. It doesn't need to be amongst other people. You know, you don't need a siyum. You don't need anybody else around. It's considered a mitzvah party, even if you're the only person at your own party. Okay, that is the end of the category of Tainis Bechorim, the general halachas. Anybody has any questions, please chat it, or we'll schmooze about it at the end. Next category, and this is also going to be unique to this year, and that is bir chametz, disposing of the chametz. Now, a person does not need to dispose of chametz, meaning if you don't have chametz, that's fine. You don't have to buy chametz to burn, okay? If you have chametz, go ahead and burn it. All right. Now, one thing to keep in mind: this year, bir chametz, the disposing of the chametz, is going to take place on Friday. Although Friday is not really Erev Pesach, the time that you need to dispose of chametz, the end of the fifth hour, halachic fifth hour of the day, the end of the halachic fifth hour of the day, will be the same time on Friday, meaning any chametz that you plan on burning should be burnt by the end of the fifth hour on Friday. We're going to point out, let's point it out right now. This year, we're still going to have chametz, however, right? Because we need to have chametz for Shabbos, Friday night meal and Shabbos day meal. And we'll get into that halacha very shortly. When a person's burning their chametz, make sure not to pour on lighter fluid, or else you lose your mitzvah. Because once lighter fluid is poured on top of the chametz, it's no longer fit for a dog to eat. So it's no longer chametz. So you didn't get a mitzvah when you burn it. So make sure not to pour on lighter fluid and just throw it in. This way, you're actually burning your chametz. This year, since there's an interesting halacha, since there's a halacha that one is not allowed to eat matzah on Erev Pesach, okay? You're not allowed to eat matzah on Erev Pesach. So we are not allowed to eat matzah this Shabbos. We're not allowed to. Therefore, in order to fulfill our Shabbos meal obligations, we need to save challah for our Shabbos morning meal. Because our Shabbos morning, we need 2 meals for Shabbos day. We're going to need a Shabbos morning meal and a Shalosh Seudos meal. But we're not allowed to wash our matzah because you're not allowed to eat. So we're going to have to eat our meals with challah before 10:35 a.m. this Shabbos. Okay? So obviously this presents a difficulty in eating Shalosh Seudos in the optimum manner. Okay? So what we're going to be doing this year is as follows. We generally start Shachris on Shabbos at 8:50 and have Shochinat at 9:15. This year, we're going to have Shochinat at 8 o'clock. We're going to be starting over an hour earlier, Some shuls are doing even earlier. We're going to be having Shochinat at 8 o'clock, which should have us complete davening on Shabbos at about 9:20. 9:20 or 9:30, we should be out of shul. And the latest time to eat chametz is 10:35 a.m. Now, the Mishnah Brura offers two options for what to do this year as far as Shalosh Shudas is concerned. Because remember, we only need to eat challah at the beginning of the meal. Once you eat your challah, the rest of your meal can be Pesachdik. It could be Pesach food, right? You don't need a whole chametz meal. You just need to have wash. You can't eat matzah, so you have to eat bread. So, but then there's also a mitzvah of Shalosh Shudas, a third meal. So how do I work this out? So the Mishnah Brura offers two options. Option number one is split the morning meal into two meals, which means you come home from shul, you wash your hands, you eat bread, bench. You can eat a piece of fish, a piece of meat, whatever. Bench quickly. You're done your meal. Take a short walk outside. Come back in. Wash again before 10:35. Eat before 10:35, and then you're already up to your second meal of the day, which is Shalosh Shudas, and you just have a normal meal then, and have serve kosher for Pesach meat or whatever it is. That's one option. Okay, again, you run home from shul, you wash, you eat a piece of fish, you bench, you go for a walk, you come back, and y'all do that within the hour before 10:35. Kaval. That's one option. Option number two is a lot easier. Moshe Feinstein recommends, he says this is totally fine as well. And he says like this, that really, according to halacha, a person may fulfill Shalosh Shudas with a piece of meat, a piece of fish, a fruit, an apple. And therefore, another option is you come home from shul, 9:30, 10 o'clock, you wash, and you're done with all your chametz. You have a normal, regular meal now. Take as long as you want. At some point in the afternoon, eat an apple, eat a piece of fish, eat a piece of meat. Nothing wrong with that. That's your Shalosh Shudas. Okay? And you're doing that actually in the right time, because Shalosh Shudas ideally is supposed to be eaten in the afternoon. All right? Even the people who have the custom to make two meals and rush and do two meals in the morning, they would also, it's also brought down halacha, they should make sure to eat an apple in the afternoon, because ideally Shalosh Shudas should be done in the afternoon. All right? But bottom line is, this Shabbos, very unique, and these are going to be the two options that we have in front of us as far as how to handle our Shabbos meals. And that ends the category of biur chametz, of the disposing of chametz. So any chametz, any chametz that we don't need for Shabbos should be disposed of. I believe it's like 11:55 a.m., which Torah Prep Girls School is going to have a bonfire on Friday from 10:30 to 11:55. You have a bonfire in their parking lot for the community, and there's going to be a bonfire in the community for the whole community, and any chametz that we're not saving for the Seudah should be disposed of by that time. Okay, that ends the category of biur chametz. Now we get to the Pesach Seder, the halachos of the Pesach Seder. Here we go. We usually prepare for the Seder by setting up before Yom Tov, because you want to start the Seder as soon as possible. This year, we're not allowed to do that, because you're not allowed to prepare on Shabbos for Pesach. Now, if you're going to sit at a different table, for your Pesach Seder than you do on Shabbos, you could set up your Pesach Seder already on Friday if you want, right? But most people have one dining room table, one kitchen table, whatever it is, and you're not allowed to prepare on Shabbos for Yom Tov. So, this year we're going to have to wait to prepare for the Seder. Anybody, whether it's women, men, anybody who's going to prepare the Seder before Kiddush. Now, keep in mind what's going to be happening. We have Shabbos. The Seder is happening Saturday night, Motzei Shabbos. So we're going to make Havdalah during Kiddush. Okay? 1 second. But if I'm making Havdalah during Kiddush, Shabbos isn't over yet until Kiddush. So how did I set the table in the first place? The answer is we have to remember that even before Kiddush, it is permitted for a person to say, it is proper for a person to say, Hamavdil ben Kodesh leKodesh, because you're going from holy to holy. So anybody who's going to be preparing the Seder after Shabbos, let's say 45, 50 minutes after Shabbos, when you're allowed to start preparing for the Seder, make sure to say the words, Hamavdil ben Kodesh leKodesh. And now it's permitted to start preparing the Seder, even though Havdalah has not yet been made. Okay. At the Pesach Seder, on Pesach night, every Jew is obligated in 5 mitzvos. 2 mitzvos are biblical, nowadays they're biblical, and 3 are rabbinic. The 2 biblical obligations are eating matzah and telling over the story of Mitzrayim, what's called Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim, telling over the story of the Exodus. Those are biblical obligations. The 3 rabbinic obligations are drinking the 4 cups of wine, eating maror, and reciting the Hallel. The second Seder, Sunday night for us, everything is rabbinic, right? Everything, because the whole second day is a rabbinic obligation. So the second Seder, everything is going to be rabbinic. But these are the 5 mitzvahs that we all perform. The main mitzvah of the Seder is to, again, biblical. So we're going to get to the matzah, but Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim, if you want to tell over the story of Mitzrayim, we want to tell it if anybody's any children around, if there's people who are going to be joining a Seder with other people, some people are going to be having the Seder by themselves. There's a mitzvah to tell over the story even when I am by myself. Okay? The mitzvah d'oraisa is to tell over the story even when I am alone. There's a custom for married men or any men that used to be married to wear a white kittel. Okay, there's 2 reasons why men wear a kittel the same way they do on Yom Kippur. The 2 seem to be conflicting reasons, but both very appropriate for the Pesach Seder. Reason number 1 for a kittel is that the white resembles malachim. It resembles angels. Okay, so according to this, why are we wearing a kittel? Because it reminds us of joy. It reminds us of simcha. The second reason for a kittel is that it resembles shrouds, right? People are buried in white shrouds. And since we're conducting ourselves in a very royal fashion, we're afraid that a person may become arrogant with all the fanciness that's taking place. And therefore, the kittel serves as a reminder for this. Now, according to either reason, I'm not sure why. I don't have an answer for this. If somebody comes across a reason, please let me know. I'm not sure why single men don't have a custom to wear a kittel. Because whatever it is, if it's a custom that men took on, so the logic seems to apply whether you are married or not married. You still need to be concerned about, if it's joyous like angels or remind us, of shrouds. The women not to wear a kittel, okay, they never accepted that custom. But if men accepted the custom of wearing it, why only men? Maybe only married men accepted it. I'm not sure. I don't have a great answer. But it's something interesting to think about. Okay, now, because one of the reasons for a kittel is that it represents royalty, there are those who have a custom that when somebody's in their year of mourning, they don't wear a kittel. Okay, because they shouldn't represent royalty. Now, practically speaking, everybody should do what's appropriate, whatever their family custom is. If it's not going to be a big statement, there's another halacha that you're not allowed to publicly mourn. So, maybe, what might be an option here is if a person's having their own seder and it's not going to be so noticeable whether or not they wear a kittel, so then and they're in a year of mourning, maybe it's not worthwhile wearing a kittel because you're an avelis. But if If somebody has if they're sitting around with a lot of people and it's going to be very noticeable, so that might be considered public mourning. So maybe a person should wear a kittel then. Okay, fine. Each person can ask their own shaila about their own situation. All right, so that deals with the preparation of the Pesach Seder. Now we get into the meat and potatoes of the Pesach Seder itself. And I see a number of people have been chatting me questions. Please continue to do so. We're going to go through all the questions once we complete this. Okay, so we're sitting by the Seder. The minhag is, the custom is to begin by singing the Seder. Everybody's got their own tune. Kadesh, Urchatz, Karpaz, Yachatz. Everybody's got their own tune that they sing it to. It's a real minhag to sing it out loud. It's kind of like a program. Everybody should know what's coming. Yeah, you should know what's coming next. And interestingly, the word Seder means order. So it's very interesting that at the Seder, where things are supposed to run in order, we sing the order out loud before we start. It's a very peculiar word for such a holy night like this, Seder, order. Like, what's that about? So yeah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has the world in order, and there's a sequence to how the Seder runs. Those of us who have had the merit to learn Daf Yomi have noticed recently that the first part of the Seder represents Yetzias Mitzrayim, and once you get to the meal and move onwards, the Seder starts to bring us to the coming of Mashiach, to our own exodus that we're, God willing, all going to have together. After reciting the order of the Seder out loud, we recite Kiddush. Okay, now Kiddush is also the first of the 4 cups. We have 4 cups to represent the 4 stages of freedom. The Haitzesi, Hashem says, I'll take you out. The Hitzalti, I will save you. The Ga'alti, I will redeem you. The Lakachti, I will take you for me as a person. I'll take you for me as a nation. Each person should have their own cup. Usually at Kiddush, one person could drink for everybody. At the Pesach Seder, since it's the first of the 4 cups, everybody should have their own cup. All men, women, and children need to drink because this is the mitzvah. Okay. Now in Kiddush, follow your machzer, but notice that there's going to be Havdalah for Shabbos built into the Kiddush as well. Women who light the Yom Tif candles. So at the time that they light the Yom Tif candles, or any men who are lighting, they make the bracha of Shehechion. On the holiday, they make the bracha of Shehechion. So at Kiddush, when everybody says the Kiddush out loud together. Other people have the minhag that one person says it out loud while everybody holds the cup. Whatever the custom is, a woman should remember, I already made the blessing of Shehechianu. So if a woman's now standing at Kiddush and everybody else is reciting Shehechianu, don't make that blessing. You already said it when you lit candles. You can answer Amen. Rav Moshe Feinstein holds you can answer Amen. It's not considered a hefsek. Answer Amen to the bracha. But the bracha itself, if a person already recited it over candles, should not be made at Kiddush. All right, here's the important part. It's all important, but here's the important part that a lot of questions come up with, and that is, how much wine do I have to drink? So we usually speak this out on Shabbos, and people can't write this down. Now you've got your pens and papers. We're on Zoom. Here we go. How much do you need to drink? So according to Rabbi Heinemann Shlita from the Starkei, he says like this. A Kiddush cup has to be 3.8 ounces. That's how much wine it has to hold. Okay, it has to be 3.8 ounces. The mitzvah of drinking the cup is not drinking the whole cup. You only have to drink a majority of 3.8 ounces, which means I need to drink for each cup 1.9 to 2 ounces for each of the 4 cups. Rav Moshe Feinstein gives a little bit of a bigger measurement. Right? I said for Heinemann it's 3.8 ounces. Rav Moshe Feinstein gives a bigger. He says the cup should hold 4.4 ounces. Okay, for the Dioraisa, or 4.2 in general. According to Rav Moshe Feinstein, you need 1.5 to drink. Okay, so there's no reason. Here's the bottom line. There's no reason for the 4 cups of wine to knock us out and make us tired. There's really no excuse. I only need to drink 2 ounces per cup. At the end of the entire Suda, all I needed to drink to fulfill my obligation was a total of 8 ounces. Okay? Now, we've said this numerous times. Shmuel Kamenetsky writes, nowadays, drinking red or purple grape juice is just as lichatchila, is just as ideal as drinking red wine. Grape juice nowadays is just as fine as drinking red wine, he says. If a person is drinking wine, however, it's got to be at least 4% alcohol. Otherwise, it's not called wine. All right? So it's got to be a minimum of 4% alcohol. So for health reasons, okay, so they have all these light wines that people can use, and you take these light wines and drink 2 ounces per cup, hakol b'seder. You know what I mean? You're good to go. What if a person has health issues, hard time with sugar levels, okay, diabetes, grape juice, with wine? How do we handle this? So for health reasons, you're allowed to dilute the wine with the following maximum ratios. You're allowed to do 1/3 of a cup wine to 2/3 of a cup diluted in either grape juice or water. So 1/3 cup wine can be diluted in 2/3 grape juice or water. But again, keep in mind, the alcohol content must be no less than 4%. So for example, if you have 10% wine, alcohol, 10% alcoholic wine, make a mixture of 40% of that wine, 60% water. You'll still have 4% alcohol content. You get the math because it was 10% wine. So now I'm taking 40% of this, 10% of that, 60% of the water, and now I have 4% alcohol. And then what do? I take that diluted cup and I drink 2 ounces. That's all I need to do. Okay. Now, those are the measurements of each of the 4 cups. It is ideal, it is preferable to drink the Rav Kais, the Rav Revius. Okay, it is preferable to drink this amount at one time. But if a person is not able to drink this amount at one time, for whatever reason, they need to sip it, for whatever, for various reasons. So it has to be put down, has to be drunk, kedei achilas pras, which the poskim discuss between 2 minutes or 9 minutes. Anywhere between 2 minutes and 9 minutes is enough to drink that 2 ounces. Apparently, the Star Case says, I was looking through their guide, they say that the strong Kedem grape juice, the purple grape juice, it's a pretty strong grape juice. According to the Star K, for sugar reasons, a person's permitted to dilute it 50-50 with water, and it would still count as one of the Dalit kosas. Okay, you could drink, if you're a person sticking with grape juice, you could dilute that purple Kedem grape juice 50-50 with water and still fulfill the mitzvah. Okay, that's what deals with the measurements of the cups. Ideally, if possible, a person should not pour their own cup. It's a sign of royalty to have somebody else pour your cup. So, the custom is that, everybody should pour for the next person. This way, I was treated like royalty, you were treated like royalty, so on and so forth. If there's nobody else to pour the cup, the Seder, that's fine too. But if, if there you have that possibility, that's the proper way to go about it. Everyone has their own cup now, right? We said everybody's got their own cup. But who makes Kiddush? There's 2 customs. Either the head of the household makes Kiddush and everybody else answers Amen, or everybody says Kiddush together. Okay? Those are the 2 customs. Now, while we drink the cup, we lean on our left side for 2 reasons. First of all, because that the right hand will be available to pour into our mouths. I'm leaning on my left, so my right hand is now available. The second reason is so the food, we don't want the food to enter the windpipe instead of the esophagus. Now, this second reason is the crucial one, because since it's for health purposes that we lean on our left, even a left-handed person also is obligated to lean on his left, even though he's not comfortable pouring with his right hand. Okay, because of this health reason. Now, here's something which is very interesting that people are not aware of, and that is that Ashkenazic women never accepted the custom to lean in mass. So really, an Ashkenazic woman is not obligated to lean. When she drinks the 4 cups of wine, they never accepted it upon themselves as an obligation. Okay? Now, of course, a woman may lean. Rav Moshe Feinstein writes that a woman should lean, still should lean, despite the fact that they didn't accept it, because this is the way that we're at the Seder. We show royalty, right? And a person should do it in the most comfortable way. Women who follow Sephardic customs have accepted upon themselves the custom to lean, and therefore they should do so. Okay? Therefore, the Sephardic women are really obligated as far as the minhag is concerned, and Ashkenazi women are not obligated as far as the leaning is concerned. Okay. After Kaddish, we don't drink anything besides for water until the second cup is the second cup of wine is drunk. So in between the first and second cup, person should really not be drinking any further wine. That ends Kaddish. Let's move on to Orchatz, and I'm going to start moving a little faster. We're already at 50 minutes. I'm going to start moving a little faster to cover the rest of the Seder, and then hopefully discuss some fascinating halachas that many of us are not familiar with concerning how to conduct ourselves on Chol Hamoed. Here we go. Orchatz. We wash our hands without a bracha. Why do we wash our hands without a bracha? Where does that come from? So in the times of the Beis Hamikdash, where they had the highest standards of purity, there was halacha that anytime a person anytime a person had a vegetable or food that was dipped into water, you had to be concerned about impurity. There's a dispute in halacha whether this applies. Nowadays, bottom line is there's no halacha about this nowadays, but everybody still agrees that at the Seder, we should do this old halacha that there used to be in the Beis Hamikdash, so that to arouse the curiosity of the children, everybody at the table be like, what are you doing? You don't dip the whole year. Why are you washing your hands out of blessing to dip? And this can lead to the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim. The head of the household, if possible, instead of getting up to go wash their hands, should have the water brought to them. Now we move on to karpas, okay, to dip the vegetable into salt water. Any vegetable that of the blessing is borei pri hadama is permitted to be used as karpas, as long as it's not a maror vegetable. Lettuce, horseradish, anything in the maror family cannot be used for karpas. Otherwise, you're fulfilling your mitzvah of maror too early. Okay, so it has to be something else besides for lettuce or horseradish that's dipped into salt water. It seems many people use potatoes, celery, carrots. According to halacha, you can use any vegetable dipped into salt water as long as it's hadama and it's not fit for maror. Okay, so we take this vegetable, we dip it into salt water. Some people are accustomed to dip it into vinegar. That's fine too. And usually manners tell us to use a fork, right? Take a fork, stick it into the veggie, and then dip it in. Here, we shouldn't do that. You should have you should rather cut big pieces of vegetable, and when you dip it into the water, don't use a fork. Because again, what's the whole reason for the karpas? Because in the times of the Beis Hamikdash, when they would handle their food and dip it into water, they would have to wash their hands. So if you're using a fork, it's totally different than the way it was in the Beis Hamikdash. So obviously, you got to be concerned about hygiene. Cut a very long piece of celery, cut a very big piece of potato, but ideally, even though usually manners dictate not to use a fork, to use a fork, here it would really be appropriate for a person to use their hand as they dip it into the salt water. We know the karpas represents the samach parach, the 600,000 people who worked, and the salt water and the vinegar is symbolic of the tears of the Jewish people in Mitzrayim, in Egypt, and our suffering. Now, when we make the blessing of ha'adama before eating the vegetable, keep in mind that it should also apply to the maror, because the maror is going to be eaten before the meal. Okay, so keep in mind that the borei pri hadama should apply to the maror as well. There's different custom as to whether people recline when they eat the karpas. Do I recline? I know I recline when I drink the wine. What about the karpas? There's different customs. Okay, it seems the prevailing custom, and I saw this in the Sefer of Rav Shimon Eider, is that one should recline for karpas unless they know that their family never did it. Okay, a person's family never reclined for karpas, don't recline for karpas. But if a person's like unsure, he seems to say that it would be appropriate to recline. After karpas, we break the middle matzah. That's called yachatz. What's yachatz? We break the middle matzah. The larger pieces put away to later be used as the afikomen. There's some people have a custom for the kids to go find the afikomens, and we have a custom for the adults to find the afikomen. All right. The whole point, it's a game. All right. And the whole point of the game is just to keep everybody awake through the Seder. It's not for the game of afikomen. It's something to do at the Seder where I take it from you, you take it from me, and you get a present. It's to keep the Seder entertaining so that people remain awake and we can fulfill our mitzvos. We break the middle matzah. Now there's 2 matzahs left because, as we know, when a person makes hamotzi on Yom Tif, you're supposed to have 2 complete loaves. So we're supposed to have 2 complete matzahs. So we have 3 matzahs at the Seder. Why? Because one's going to break. So I need to have 2 remaining for to make a blessing on at my meal. We put away the bigger piece and we hold the smaller piece in our hand, and now we begin reciting the Haggadah, what's called Magid, and we recite it while we have the smaller piece of matzah. Now, Magid is the story of the Exodus. It's the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim. We should keep in mind we're fulfilling the mitzvah, the oraisa, the biblical obligation of telling over this story. The Shulchan Aruch says that when we recite the Magid, a person should move the Seder plate, which has the food on it, to the end of the table. This way it looks like we're finished eating, and the children are going to ask, why are you moving the food away? That's ridiculous. We haven't even started eating. Come on. And we're going to say, oh, you know why we're moving the food away? Because I've got a story to tell you. Yeah, and here we go. Here's the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim. The children, if there are children at the table, ask the Manishtana. If there are no children at the table, the wife asks the Manishtana. A person themselves should ask the Manishtana. And my family Seder, my father would give a chance to all the kids, and then all the adults said it together as well. And my father, Zechariah Lebracha, said over that when he was learning in Lakewood by Reb Aaron and his Rebbetzin had the Seder with the yeshiva, and Rebbetzin Cutler got up. I don't know if she stood up or what, but Rebbetzin Cutler out loud in front of the Olam, in front of the yeshiva guys, recited the Manishtana. Okay? Now, I saw a beautiful idea explained by Rabbi Ilan Feldman, who's a Rav in Atlanta. He says, why, if somebody's having a Seder alone, do you recite Manishtana? Why are you asking yourself questions? You're by yourself. He says a beautiful idea. He says, free people are permitted to ask. Servants are told to keep their mouth zipped. Don't ask questions, just do as I say. Since at the Pesach Seder, we're showing freedom and royalty, everything should be done in a question-answer fashion, because it's the greatest symbol of being a Ben Chorin, greatest symbol of freedom. Servants have no right to ask questions. This is why everybody should be asking questions. Okay, after the Manishtana, we put the Seder plate back to where it was, and we recite Avodah Vayinu. We start telling over the story about how we were at Mitzrayim. Different customs. Again, some have a custom the head of the Seder recites everything. Some people have a custom that everybody recites it together. During Magid, there are 16 times where we use our finger to displace the wine. And the reason why we use our finger and we dip it in to move the drops from the cup is because that is recalling the sorcerers in Egypt. Egypt was full of magic, full of sorcery. And that is the sorcerers of Egypt, the magicians in Egypt, admitted that all of the plagues were Etzba Elokimhi, was the finger of God. And therefore, when we recite the plagues, we use our finger and displace a little bit of wine to recall that even the sorcerers in Egypt reached a level where they recognize that everything is from Hashem. Now, although ideally people should remain present throughout the Haggadah, as we've learned recently in Daf Yomi. That's not always the case. People doze off during the Pesach Seder. Some things don't change apparently. We had it in the times of the Beis Hamikdash, and it applies now as well. So, we should try to be there for as much of the Haggadah as possible. But if a person's tired, they have to walk away from the table, whatever it is. And I'm not talking about kids; I'm talking about adults now. At minimum, a person's you'll when you look into your Haggadah, you'll see towards the end of Magid, there's a paragraph of Rabban Gamliel Omer. Rabban Gamliel says, okay, and that's the Pesach Matzah and Maror. At least people should be present from Rabbi Gamliel Omer through the drinking of the second cup. And at minimum, to fulfill the mitzvah, one must say Pesach Matzah and Maror along with the reasons. So those are 3 short paragraphs. And at minimum, that's how we get our mitzvah of Magid. Everything else would be ideal, but it's extras. All right, that's Magid. After Magid, the next part of the Seder is Rachza. This time we wash our hands when we make a bracha. Why are we washing our hands? We washed it at the beginning of the Seder. The answer is because we're concerned we may have touched something that would obligate us in a new blessing, in a new bracha. Fine. So we wash our hands with a blessing, and now it's time to eat the matzah. What do? So the head of the Seder picks up the 2 complete matzahs along with the broken matzah. And he makes the bracha of hamotzi. Then you drop the whole bottom matzah and you make a bracha of, first you make hamotzi, then you drop the bottom matzah and you make a bracha of alachilas matzah. Okay? Because now it's being made on a broken matzah and a whole one. So all considerations are taken care of. What do you mean? We know that for Yom Tif, we need 2 complete ones. At the same time, there's a question if alachilas matzah should be said on a whole matzah or the broken one. So like this, you fulfilled everything. We held all 3. We had 2 whole ones by hamotzi. Drop one of the whole ones. Now I still have a whole 1.5 one that I'm saying by alachilas matzah. We covered all opinions. How much matzah do you need to eat now? How much matzah must be eaten? So here we go. According to Rabbi Heidemann and the Star K, 1/3 of a hand matzah or 1/2 of a square machine matzah. And he says, Rabbi Heinemann holds that in case of a medical condition, it's half of that. So he said like 1/3 of a hand matzah is ideal. Then if you have a medical condition, you can't get it down, whatever it is, various reasons, health, you can eat a 1/6. A healthy person should eat a 1/3. A person who has other should eat a 1/6, half of that of a ham matzah, or a 1/4 of a square matzah. If a person cannot bite matzah, person can't eat matzah, so you can use shmura matzah meal, compacted into 1.5 ounces. 1.5 ounces of compacted shmura matzah meal also can allow a person to fulfill their mitzvah. We recline when we eat the matzah. And it's also brought down that from the time we wash for motzi matzah, we're now going to go into maror and then have the sandwich. A person should not speak things that are unnecessary, things that don't have to do with the Seder. It's not the proper time to shmooze because we're kind of starting our mitzvah now of matzah, maror, and then the matzah and mar. So what's with the mar? So we eat a minimum of amount of mar 2 times during the Seder, both by achilas mar, and then we're going to have the korech sandwich. If one is using pure ground horseradish, you need 1.1 ounces of pure horseradish for the mitzvah of marar. However, when you're going to eat the mar with the matzah, if you're only going to use horseradish, you need 0.7 ounces of pure horseradish. If a person's using romaine lettuce, how much romaine lettuce do you need to eat? It's the amount that covers an 8 by 10 area. Okay, 8 inches by 10 inches without the stalks. Stalks are thicker. So if you use stalks, you need less. Picture romaine leaves. The romaine leaves need to cover an 8 by 10 area. Now we know there's a custom to dip the mar into charosas. A lot of people love charosas. Other people don't like charosas. But if you like charosas, make sure you can still taste the maror. You're not eating charosas that has maror in it. You're eating maror that has some charosas on it. You want to eat more charosas later? Gesundheit. Eat as much as you want. But make sure at the time that you're eating the maror that the taste of the charosas does not overpower the maror. So if you dip it in, whatever, it would be proper to go shake it off. Okay, shake off the charos as much as possible so you taste the maror. After you eat your matzah and you eat your maror, so now we make the matzah maror sandwich, which in our times, I'm not sure why it's even called a sandwich. The sandwich lasts for a total of 4 seconds, right? You take one bite and it's no longer a sandwich. That's it. It's on the floor. It's not around anymore. Okay. Now, again, we came across this in Daf Yomi, and the word korech actually means a wrap. I believe Sfardim have this, but their matzahs used to be like lafas, like shawarma lafas. They made it. No reason why not. There's no reason why you can't have a soft laf. But for us, our custom is do it harder and make sure that it's completely baked and whatever it is for us Ashkenazim. But the word korech does not mean sandwich. The word korech means wrapped. Hillel used to wrap his carbon pesach meat, his lamb chops, with his maror, with his romaine lettuce, and his wrap. That was his matzah. See, he mamish had a shawarma, a lamb chop shawarma. And that's how Hillel ate his korech. It was a wrap. Nowadays, we don't have that, right? So we just eat we have our matzah and our maror together. The reason why we eat it as a sandwich is because the Gemara brings a dispute nowadays between Hillel and other sages, whether nowadays it should be the matzah and then the maror, or it should be the matzah with the maror. So at the Seder, we're basically covering all of our bases. We eat the matzah, we eat the maror, and then the matzah with the maror. And now we've covered all opinions. There's different customs as to whether you dip the sandwich into charosas, and we do recline. There is reclining. The same way we recline my matzah, it is proper to recline during korech. Okay, then we get to the meal. Then we get to Shulchan Aruch. A person should not eat or drink excessively during the meal. We need to leave room for the afikomen. And another reason is because if we eat a lot during the meal, it's going to make us very tired and drowsy before we've even completed the drinking of the 4 cups or recited Hallel. Many people have a custom to eat an egg at the Seder, which is a sign of mourning. This is because the Seder night always falls out the same night as Tisha B'Av. Okay, so notice that. If the Seder night is falling out on a Matzei Shabbos, that means Tisha B'Av of that year falls out on a Matzei Shabbos and a Sunday. Now, eating this egg at the Seder is not a halacha. It's a custom that some people have. There's a general custom as well not to eat anything roasted at the Pesach Seder, meat or chicken. If it has gravy, that's fine. Okay, if there's gravy, it's fine. But like dried out meat, there's a custom not to have it. Otherwise, it represents the carbon Pesach. Now, for people who are having a Seder with kids get very restless. So there's a few things we'll talk about afterwards, how to make a Seder exciting for kids. But keep in mind that while they're eating is probably the best time to tell them the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim. And by kids, I mean kids of all ages. I don't mean kids up until or through teenage years. I mean until 120. Very often, we're sitting down at the Pesach Seder, people's stomachs are rumbling, they're growling, and they need some energy. Shulchan Aruch, very often, it would make a lot more sense to read through the Magid without the 7,000 Divrei Torah. And when you get to Shulchan Aruch and people are taking their time with the soup or whatever you're eating, share, a lot of the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim. After we eat the meal, we have tzafon, which is eating the afikomen. Afikomen was the term that was used in those times for dessert. Now, once we eat afikomen, that should be the last lingering taste that we have in our mouth. You shouldn't eat anything after afikomen. As far as drinks is concerned, what about drinking things? It's permitted to drink things that are in the water family. So water, seltzer, things of that sort are permitted to drink after afikomen. Other things that have stronger flavor would not be appropriate because that would remove the flavor of the afikomen. After that, we bench. We have Birchas Hamazon, what's called Barech. Okay? And even though during the year, if you have 3 men eating together, you have a zimun, you honor other people. Over here, it's appropriate for the head of the household to lead the zimun, and finally we have the third mitzvah midrabanan, which is halal, which is the last rabbinical mitzvah, and a person should recite halal and drink the fourth cup. Now, if you have a zimun, 3 men together, it's appropriate to recite it's appropriate to say it responsively, the same way that it is done in shul. And then nirtza, as we explained, ends off the seder with a number of nigunim, a number of songs that we sing, that leads us into particular discussion of the coming of Mashiach. Those are the halachas of the seder. That completes that section. And now, let's talk about the final category of halachas for this evening. Hope I'm not putting everybody to sleep. And that is the laws of Chol HaMoed. Try to pay close attention to this, even though it's late. It's a fascinating concept. People are not familiar with the laws of Chol HaMoed at all. People are not familiar with it. We don't even know what to ask or how it works. Let's give a little introduction. All right? The Gemara in Tractate Psachim, we just did this in Daf Yomi 2 days ago. The Gemara in Tractate Psachim teaches us, in the name of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, the same one who, the famous story, he was 18, appointed Rosh Yeshiva, his hair turned white. Yeah, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Listen to his words, fascinating. Says Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Gemara Psachim Daf Kuf Yirches. Kol hamivaze es hamoados. Anybody who embarrasses Chol HaMoed and does not treat Chol HaMoed with respect, Ke'ilu Oved Avodah Zarah, it's as if you're worshiping idols. If a person doesn't treat Chol HaMoed with respect, it's like you're worshiping Avodah Zarah. And I'll prove it to you because it says, Elohei Masecha Lo Saselach, you shouldn't make idols. And then it says, Eschag Hamatzos Tishbar, you got to take care of the entire Yom. All right? Including the intermediate days. Why is Chol HaMoed such a big deal? The answer is, what's it like Avodah Zarah? The answer is very simple. Moed in Hebrew means a meeting, a meeting. Now, us Americans are used to the word meeting to mean a waste of time. That's how we view meeting. I'm having a meeting means it's a waste of time. It means I have to meet somebody, I got to sit in on a board meeting, I got to go to this, and then I'll accomplish later. But a meeting with Hashem is supposed to be productive. If Chol HaMoed is a meeting with Hashem, and I embarrass Chol HaMoed by not taking its laws seriously, so I'm being unfaithful to my meeting with God. God says, here, you want to go on a date with me? I'm like, sure. I show up to the date, and I'm like, yeah, sorry, God, I got a game. I'll see you later. Well, what's more important than me? Why are you being unfaithful? What are you going to serve? What's going on? Says Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, anybody who doesn't take Chol HaMoed seriously, you're walking away from a personal meeting with Hashem. Okay. So therefore we see the importance of treating Chol HaMoed properly. Chol HaMoed is a Yom Tif. It's a holiday. It's not like a lot of us view Chol HaMoed as the weekday break from the holiday. Chol HaMoed is a Yom Tif. It is a holiday. It happens to be that on these days of the holiday, there are certain permitted activities. And that's the mindset we need to have. It's not that everything is permitted on Chol HaMoed and I got to just find out what the issue is. It's the opposite. Chol HaMoed is a holiday. It's a Yom Tif. Oh, it happens to be that the Torah tells us it's a different category of holy than the other days, than the first day and the last day. Okay? So there's very specific halachas to Chol HaMoed. In some instances, some activities are permitted. In some instances, activities are forbidden. What is important to keep in mind is that even the malachos that are allowed on Chol HaMoed are everything, are only permitted, and some people may want to write down these words because these are going to be words in Hebrew that we use over and over. Activities are permitted as long as they are done litzorach hamoed, which means litzorach hamoed means I'm doing it for the sake of giving honor to the Yom Tif, in order to benefit the Yom Tif. And the halachas Chol HaMoed are very complex. It's not very long. It's not going to take us a long time, but it's complex. And in each circumstance, there may be room for leniency, sometimes a requirement for stringency, shyless. You could ask questions, obviously, but I just want to lay the groundwork for everybody as to, give an overall perspective of how it works. Okay. So in general, here we go. In general, the activities that are forbidden on Shabbos are also forbidden on Chol HaMoed, unless it's being done for the holiday. Okay? Now, there are specific activities that the sages teach us may even be forbidden when done for the holiday. Okay? There are some that teach may even be done when done for the holiday. So first of all, a few things I want to get out of the way. The laws of muktzah don't apply on Chol HaMoed. Okay? Let's set that from the get-go. There's no such thing as muktzah on Chol HaMoed. There's also another halacha on Shabbos called daber davar, where you're not allowed to talk about non-holy things on Shabbos, right? We don't talk about business on Shabbos. It's called daber davar. You're not allowed to talk about things. On Chol HaMoed, daber davar is allowed. You're allowed to talk shop on Chol HaMoed. So two categories that are certainly permitted. The sages say from the get-go, these things are rabbinic prohibitions on Shabbos, were never applied to Chol HaMoed. Muktzah and daber davar. Okay. Daber davar, you're allowed to talk about non-holiday things on Chol HaMoed. What about amira la'akum? On Shabbos, you're not allowed to ask a guy to do something for you. On Chol HaMoed, anything that I'm forbidden to do, I'm not allowed to ask a non-Jew to do. Therefore, if I can't mow my lawn on Chol HaMoed, which we're going to learn you're not allowed to do, I'm not allowed to hire a non-Jew to mow my lawn either. The same way, when I can't mow my lawn on Shabbos, I can't ask a non-Jew to mow my lawn on Shabbos. When I can't mow my lawn on Chol HaMoed, I'm not allowed to ask a non-Jew to mow my lawn on Chol HaMoed. Okay? Let's give an overall breakdown. I want to create a structure for the laws of Chol HaMoed. There's 5 categories that are of activities that are permitted to do on Chol HaMoed. Again, Chol HaMoed usually, it should be like Shabbos, as far as biblical things are concerned. However, there are 5 categories we have to know. Things that fall into these 5 categories will be allowed on Chol HaMoed, and I'll tell you the list. First, we'll list them, and then we'll go through each one. And this is going to be the whole share of these things. It's 5 things. There's 5 categories of things that are permitted. Number 1 is called Tzorech HaMoed. Things that are done for holiday needs are allowed on Chol HaMoed. That's category number 1. Category number 2 of things that are permitted on Chol HaMoed is called Ochel Nefesh. Things that are done for food, eating. Activities done for eating are permitted on Chol HaMoed. Number 3, third category of activities that make things permitted on Chol HaMoed is called Tzarchei Rabim, when the masses, when the public needs it. Therefore, there may be times where in my private home I'm not allowed to do something, yet for the shul, it might be allowed. It's called Tzarchei Rabim, is mutter on Chol HaMoed. We'll qualify these things. The 4th category of things that are permitted on Chol HaMoed is called Davar Ha'aved, when there's a loss of money. When there's a loss of money involved, I'm permitted to do that activity on Chol HaMoed, and we'll explain what's considered a loss of money. The 5th category doesn't really apply to us too much. We're not going to focus on it, but it's called a poel she'ein lo ma yochel. A person who, if they don't work, won't even have food on the table. You're allowed to go work. If I don't work, I can't put food on my table. that's permitted to do on Chol Hamoed. Those are the 5 categories, and now let's go through each one of the 5. All right, here we go. The first category of permitted activities of Chol Hamoed we said is called Tzorech HaMoed, when something needs to be done for the Yom Tov. Okay, now something that's needed for the holiday is permitted to be done as long as I'll say it in Hebrew first, as long as it's a Maisa Hedyot, as long as it's an activity that most people could do. For example, I'm allowed to bang a nail in a wall. I'm allowed to change a light bulb. I'm allowed to change the batteries in my clock because most people know how to do this. I'm allowed to change my tire on a car. Not everybody knows how to change a tire, but you pull over to the side. Enough people will know how to do it. Okay, it's called a Maisa Hedyot. Okay, if I need to do something for the holiday, and an average person could know how to pull it off, you're allowed to do that activity on Yom Tov. So I'm allowed to set my alarm clock. I'm allowed to do all these things. However, a Maisa Uman, if something is a specialty, for example, putting in a new bathtub, a larger home repair, shoe repairs, most people don't know how to repair their own shoes, is forbidden even if it's for the Yom Tov. You got it? So, on Yom Tov, I'm not allowed to do anything that's a Maisa Uman. I'm not allowed to bring my shoes in for a shoe repair. Okay? Now, but so a Maisa Hedyot is allowed. What an average person could do on Chol Hamoed is allowed. What a craftsman is needed for is not allowed. Now, there's an exclusion to this, and this is what's fascinating about the multi layers of Chol Hamoed, is that there's an exception to this, and that is that even if you need a craftsman for something, if it's needed for Ochel Nefesh, if it's needed for eating, so then it's allowed. For example, if I only have one oven that breaks on Chol Hamoed and I need to eat for Yom Tov, I'm allowed to bring in a craftsman to fix my oven so that I can eat for the Yom Tov, even though an average person doesn't know how to fix an oven. Okay, so that's one. That's one exception to this. Another exception to a Maisa Uman is, now keep in mind, if a person has a second oven to cook in, it may not be permitted to call a craftsman. It may not be permitted to call GE, Frigidaire, whoever you have your warranty with on Chol Hamoed, because you don't need it to eat. You could use your other oven. Okay. Another exception to this rule, when it is permitted to get a craftsman, is if it's a tzorech haguf. If my body physically needs this to function, for example, the toilet breaks, or if somebody's eyeglasses break, I can't function, I can't see. If the bathroom doesn't work, you're not going to have a functioning household. Our bodies can't function appropriately. So also something that is a tzorech haguf, is that we physically need, is permitted on Chol Hamoed, even though you're going to need a craftsman. Okay? Another exception that you're allowed to hire a craftsman for is if it's going to cause you tremendous loss of money. What's called in halacha a hefsid meruba, tremendous loss. God forbid somebody gets a leak in their roof and it's raining, and if you don't get it fixed, it's going to cause bigger problems. It's going to cause thousands of dollars in damage. You're allowed to go get a craftsman, get a roof repair guy down on Chol Hamoed to go fix your roof. Okay, so when is it? So usually things are only permitted for Yom Tov. Again, all these things is because I need my roof for Yom Tov. I need my bathroom for Yom Tov. I need my oven for Yom Tov. Usually, if an average person can do it and it's needed for Yom Tov, allowed. A craftsman needed for Yom Tov, not allowed, unless my body needs it. It's going to cause me a big financial loss, or I need it for my Yom Tov meals. Okay, now an interesting thing which comes up is haircuts. People could give themselves their own haircuts. People can shave. You don't need to go to a fancy salon to get these things done. So why can't I take a haircut on Chol Hamoed? It's a Maisa Hedyot. I want to look nice for the second days of Pesach. I'm doing it for Yom Tov. I'm doing it in honor of the holiday. Let me take a haircut, right? According to what we're saying, what's the issue? So the reason why haircuts are not allowed on Chol HaMoed is because the rabbi said that they have a concern. If they're going to allow haircuts and shaving on Chol HaMoed, we are going to get so busy with all of our prep that we'll think to ourselves, oh, instead of getting ready in honor of Yom Tif and taking a haircut and shaving, I could do it in 2 days. On Chol HaMoed, I'll take a haircut and shave. Therefore, the sages instituted, in order that we should keep respecting the Yom Tif, no haircuts, no shaving on Chol HaMoed. This way, we're ensuring that everybody is showing up and giving the holiday itself the proper respect instead of waiting to do it. Later on. Okay, so that's why haircuts are not allowed. Cutting nails, however, very interesting. So, what about cutting nails on Yom Tov? So, you're allowed to, if people bite their nails, you're allowed to bite your nails. You're allowed to peel also without anything. You're allowed to peel your nails as well. What about using a clipper on your nails? So the halacha is like this: if a person usually clips their nails on Erev Shabbos, or a person clips their nails on Erev Pesach, even if I don't usually do it Shabbos, but I clip my nails before Pesach, then I would be allowed to use a clipper on Chol HaMoed as well. Laundry is a very hard thing for a lot of people, especially people with kids, where there's the laundry keeps piling up. But laundry is the same reason as haircuts. The reason why you're not allowed to do laundry, even though an average person is able to do that nowadays, is because they were concerned that with all the hectic times that go into a holiday, people aren't going to make sure that they launder prior to Yom Tif and not have to deal with laundry on Yom Tif. And therefore, it's forbidden for one to do laundry so that we don't come into Yom Tif unprepared with dirty clothes. Now, there are exceptions to this. Here's the exceptions to laundry. Some interesting things. Children who soil themselves, okay? Children who soil themselves. In certain cases, elderly people. Even at time where you're allowed to launder children's clothing, you're only allowed to launder the clothing that they need for the Yom Tif. If they need those clothing for the Yom Tif, then it's allowed. Okay? Tablecloths are allowed to be laundered as long as you need those tablecloths for Yom Tif. And specialty items. This is very important for a lot of people to know this. Specialty items are permitted to launder. Okay? Certain people need certain, it could be support hosiery. It can be uniforms. Things that people have in very limited form. I only have 2 pairs of, it could be, some people wear pressure garments to keep their blood flow going. These are called specialty items. And halacha doesn't demand that people go out and purchase 11 pairs of them. So if a person has a specialty garment and you have it laundered prior to Yom Tif and they need to be laundered on Chol HaMoed, it would be permitted. To do. Ironing also, an average person is permitted to iron, but you're not allowed to take it to the dry cleaners to get pressed because that's called the Maisa Uman. The way that the dry cleaners press it, that's already fancy. That's called a craftsman's action. And a regular person in their house, you want to unwrinkle a shirt, you can do that on Chol HaMoed. But to take it to a dry cleaners to get pressed is not allowed. So that was the first category, right? We said what was the first category of things that are permitted? That was Shorech HaMoed, things that are needed for the Moed, things that are needed for the Yom Tif. Category number 2 of things that are permitted is Ochel Nefesh, for food. So you're allowed to cook on Chol HaMoed any food that you need for Yom Tif. You're not allowed to cook on Chol HaMoed. Let's say I'm making a party a week after Yom Tif. I'm not allowed to cook on Chol HaMoed for my party in a week, even though I happen to have time right now. You're allowed to cook on Chol HaMoed for Yom Tif. Okay. Aside from the malachos being prohibited, we also have to make sure we are noeg simchas Yom Tif. Okay, which means that a person should try to have specific, more respectable meals on Chol HaMoed than we would have on an average Tuesday night. There should be respect given to those foods. If a person can afford a little bit chicken, a little bit of meat, a little bit fancier than your regular weekday meal, it's appropriate to do so as well. One also should not schedule medical procedures for Chol HaMoed unless they have a specific issue, a dentist checkup, a doctor's checkup. Shouldn't be scheduled for Chol HaMoed unless there's a reason. If a person has a toothache, a person needs to get this checkup for whatever reason, because there's nothing wrong with that, because that's your tzarech haguf, right? You got to take care of yourself and get it done. But otherwise, a person shouldn't schedule procedures or appointments on Chol HaMoed. It's distracting from this meeting that we're supposed to be having with Hashem, the special time that we're supposed to be having. Tzarchei Rabim. The next category we said is for the masses. If postponing a project will jeopardize a project, so it's allowed, even if it's a Maisa Uman. Sometimes the community needs something to be put together, be built, and it needs a craftsman to handle it. So if not working on it on Chol HaMoed will jeopardize the product, then it is allowed. Writing also. So writing, what is that? Is that the act of a craftsman? Is that an average person? So it depends. Depends how fancy. You have people who are into calligraphy, right? So writing in general is allowed. The custom is that even if it's a Maisa Hedyot, even if I'm doing it, not in a special way, but to do it with a shinoi, to do it in a unusual way. However, if the writing's not done the Tzorech HaMoed, if it's just plain writing, it shouldn't be done. You're allowed to write a shopping list. You're allowed to write a letter. You're allowed to write things that have to do with that, has connected to the Yom Tov. But just to sit and write Torah, right? To write Torah is fine. But to just write shouldn't be done. It shouldn't be done if it's not L'tzorech HaMoed. The next category we said is a Davar Ha'avid. This is very important to a lot of people. This has to do with going to work. Davar Ha'avid. It's going to cause a loss of money. So under certain conditions, Melacha may be allowed due to being a Davar Ha'avid. Now, what's important to know is that a person, a Yid, should avoid working on Chol HaMoed. Okay? Now, however, if a person has to go into work, and has to go into work doesn't mean you're going to get fired otherwise. I have to go into work means if I don't go into work, then my company is going to be upset with me. They're going to have tinus. They're going to have a claim against me. They're not going to be happy with me. Okay? That's called the Davar Ha'avid. That's called, if I don't go to work, I'm taking a loss. If, however, not going to work at Chol HaMoed, the company won't have a problem, but they'll say, okay, you got to count it as your vacation days. So then your person should not go into work. One should count it as their vacation days. It's not called a Davar Ha'avid. Okay? In other words, if what's at stake is not the loss of my job, it's not the company having tainas, it's so then it's not called Davar Ha'avid. Okay? Now there's a whole discussion, and I don't want to give each situation is going to be unique, but a Davar Ha'avid means I'm actually going to lose money. It doesn't mean a loss of profit. A person should be willing to lose out on a profit to not work on Chol HaMoed. The Ha'avid generally is going to mean that I'm going to lose out on something that I currently have, whether it's a status, whether it's finances, a company being upset at me. Okay, obviously, if it's going to cause a loss of salary or cause any sort of severe consequences, then it is mutter to is permitted to work on Chol HaMoed. A person who sells things for Yom Tif, so that's business. But let's say I sell things, I sell food for Yom Tif, I sell clothing for Yom Tif. So, it is permitted to do it on Chol HaMoed, as well as purchasing items. You're allowed to shop for items on Chol HaMoed if number one, either the item is needed for Yom Tif, so I need another dress, I need another pair of shoes, I need some socks for Yom Tif, you're allowed to buy that, or there's a sale going on, and there's no way I could get this price after Yom Tif. Then, if I don't, and I need it, so now if I don't buy it, I'm going to take a loss of money. So if there's like a big time sale that's not coming around anytime soon, you're permitted to purchase that on Chol HaMoed as well. Just to wrap up, two more things, okay? And that is, the custom is to dress a little nicer on Chol HaMoed, to wear Yom Tov style clothing. as opposed to weekday style clothing, and also as far as men with tefillin. So there's different customs about wearing tefillin on Chol HaMoed. Some people do, some people don't. It seems that Hasidim and Sfardim generally do not wear tefillin on Chol HaMoed. The custom around Eretz Yisrael and the custom of the Gra, where they follow the custom of the Vilna Gaon, and they don't wear tefillin, and therefore my personal custom is to wear tefillin. Those of us who wear tefillin don't make a bracha, however, okay, unless you're Yekis. So there's multi-layered. There's all different. Yekis wear tefillin with a bracha. Most Ashkenazim wear tefillin on Chol HaMoed without a bracha. Ashkenazim and Sfardim don't wear tefillin at all. So when I was in Eretz Yisrael, you have to follow the minhag of Eretz Yisrael. So I would put on my tefillin. I would put on my tefillin in private. All right. So again, the last two is to dress nicer, and then this discussion having to do with tefillin. That is the general overview, the 5 categories of things to keep in mind when thinking about what is permitted on Chol HaMoed. Again, it's got to be Tzorach HaMoed, or Ochel Nefesh, or Tzorchei Rabim, or a Dover HaOved, or a Pol She'em Moed Ma'alecha. We didn't get too involved in that because that's certainly, if the person's not going to have food, what to eat on Chol HaMoed, they should go out and take care of that work. Okay, that ends the sheer side of things for now. And now we'll take a look at the chat and try to go through some of the questions. Here we go. Here's the chat. All right, let's go through some of the questions. Are we recording this? Yes, we recorded this, Baruch Hashem. You don't need to see them to have a siyum. Yeah, a person should try to attend the siyum ideally. But yeah, you're right. In previous years, that's what we had, especially last year with COVID. That's what we recommended to people. The next question: can egg matzah be eaten instead of challah on Shabbos? So there's differences of opinion. I've heard that Rabbi First from Chicago does allow egg matzah to be made hamotzi on if you use that as a staple of a meal. And according to Rabbi First, it would be permitted to eat egg matzah this Shabbos. It's not, even though usually you're not allowed to eat matzah on Erev Pesach, he says it's not called matzah. Okay. Do you wear a kittel if you're a guest at somebody else's seder? Yes, you wear a kittel if a person's married and they're not in Avelos. Even if they're at somebody else's seder, the custom is that a married man wears a kittel. Next question. Any tips for a quick seder for small children? This year it's following Shabbos and the additional restrictions on preparation. Absolutely. What a quick seder for children should cover, and then the adults can have a proper seder. So a couple things. I think that's the last question. No, there's more after that. So a couple things to say to that question. First of all, if they're children under age 9 and they're not really at the age of chinuch, so one eitzah could be that you could spend a little time with them on Shabbos itself, kind of having a mock seder. That's not preparation. You're kind of playing with them, right? Having a mock seder. What I personally do with my children to keep them involved is we move it along. We have what's called sorry, 1 second. We have what's called a Tendler salad. We have a big salad bowl that's filled with all sorts of marshmallows and candies, and every question that they ask or every Dvar Torah that they share, they get other candies. So that kind of keeps them involved at a certain point. No more Divrei Torah, no more candies, But I would say, listen, we have a mitzvah. If a person has children at their Seder, we have a biblical obligation to teach them. So we want them to be up for the beginning of the Seder. Try to get them involved in the story at the time of Manishtana. Have them drink a cup of Kiddush. Make sure you'll fulfill your obligation at Manishtana. Tell over part of the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim. You got that part of the obligation. Make it interesting, and they can go to sleep. They don't need to stay up the whole night, and make the Seder longer. So as soon as we fulfill the mitzvah of Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim, and we spoke to our children for a few minutes about how HaKadosh Baruch Hu took us out of Mitzrayim and continues to be involved in every area of our life, this sentence I just said gets you the mitzvah. So after that, it's each person has to know the children that they have at their Seder. What is the time limit for eating the matzah? The kazayas of matzah should be eaten kedei achilas pras, which ranges in halacha anywhere between 2 up to 9 minutes. So if you eat your matzah within, let's call it, you want to be safe in there, 7 minutes to eat your kazayas, you're good to go. Okay. Painting with a question mark. I'm assuming the question is painting on Chol HaMoed. I'm not sure. A larger paint job should not be done. To paint over a spot on a wall, a spot over there would be okay. Next question: is a person obligated to take a vacation day on Chol HaMoed if it means you will not be able to take a vacation day later in the year, such as a summer family vacation? Yes, in other words, yes, ideally, but every person has to know their family. You have to know your family. If sometimes a person's family summer vacation is not a vacation. That's when they are able to fulfill their mitzvah of bonding with their, with their spouse, sibling, parents, children. So I would say, as a person obligated, you got to ask a personal shaila about it. But in general, a person should take Chol HaMoed days as vacation days. If there's another reason why it's not going to work out, and there's another factor, so then a particular shaila should be asked. That is all of the questions on the chat. And unless anybody has a verbal question, we will hold it here for this evening. Yashikayach to everybody here who hung on for the hour and the hour and 40 minutes of the shir. And Be'ezras Hashem, hopefully this was informative, and hopefully we'll take these halachas with us, and we're prepared as much as possible. For those able to join us tomorrow night at 8 o'clock, it'll be a little shorter, but we'll go through some short divrei Torah and ideas to share as we get ready for the Haggadah and the Pesach Seder.
Thank you very much.
Have a wonderful night. A pleasure.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you. Thank you.